Hello guys, welcome to Fun Friday with me, James, the host of Fun Friday. So, as of today, filming this video with the God beams shining upon me, it's actually Friday, the day after International Women's Day, which is a thing that I heard about was happening yesterday, and I'm actually quite surprised that I didn't see more stuff on BookTube about, considering the gender ratio of booktubers is largely skewed towards female booktubers as opposed to men, and I didn't see a single video about International Women's Day, and I thought, well, that's not on, so if no one else is going to do it, I suppose I should, and I decided that I would go down a list, a top 10 in fact, as a breakaway from the usual top 5 shenanigans. I'm doing a top 10 of my favourite female characters that are all strong female characters. This list is not going to be full of people that do the stabby, but there will be some stabbings on the list. So let's just dive straight into it. We're going to go with the first one on my pile that I have here just off camera, and that is not this fellow. It is Cirilla, or otherwise known as Ciri, from the Witcher saga. Ciri is the child of destiny, is a interesting way of saying she's the chosen one, but she's not really that much of a chosen one. It's kind of a whole weird thing that is really unimportant to her character as a whole. So basically, Ciri is a princess from the land of Sintra who was taken away from her home after it was sacked by the vile, dastardly Nilfgaardian Empire, and was taken in by Geralt of Rivia the Witcher. There she was trained in the Witcher ways and learned how to stab and fight and fence all sorts of monsters, but more importantly she learned self-reliance and resilience and decency towards human beings, and she used those abilities to go out and into the world on her own and fight against all the things that were sort of persecuting her and the people that she cared about. Ciri is an incredibly strong female character, not just because she is super swordsman extraordinaire, but because she is compassionate. She's tormented and struggles, but she always stands up for herself. There's a great exchange in this book in particular where she's doing this really hard training and she's knocked on her ass over and over again, beaten black and blue, and she just gets back up and jumps back on it without hesitating, because that is the sort of person she is, as instilled by the values of her guardians, of course. But that is the sort of person she develops into, as someone who will get beaten up, knocked down, dragged through the mud, but never give up. And that is the John Cena way, and what makes Ciri a great character. So, moving swiftly on to number 2, I've picked Emily Baxter from Daniel Cole's book Ragdoll. Emily Baxter is a sergeant, I believe, with the homicide department of the Metropolitan Police Department in London. She is engaged in a crime, obviously, because she's a detective, so she's put on the case of helping to solve this crime alongside the main character as Wolf. But the thing that makes Baxter strong, first of all, she doesn't take any shit from anyone. She's a woman in a man's world, absolutely, but she's also very funny and sarcastic and driven. She's dedicated to her job, and she's not afraid to stand up against the sort of indiscretions of other cops on her team. She sees things that Wolf is doing and doesn't just sit idly by and let them happen. She very much plays an active role in the story, and she's a very active character. There's a lot of depth to Emily Baxter in this novel, and I'm actually looking forward to the sequel, because it looks like it's going to at least focus on her quite a lot more than even this one did, and it focused on her quite a lot. So that's going to be pretty good when that comes out, whenever that is, probably this year at some point. Number 3, Emma Morley from One Day by David Nichols. Emma Morley is an English teacher That's it. She doesn't fight anyone. She's not a cop. She's not, a woman of action. She's an English teacher. But, there are people in real life, guys, that can be considered strong people and strong women. You don't always have to do backflip kicks. This is what I have always talked about when it comes to strong female characters. It's not about the strength of your sword arm, it's about the strength of your character. And Emma Morley is a great character. She, from the very beginning, is obviously very opinionated and determined to go and succeed in her life, even when things are not working out for her. She always finds the strength to, fight against her situation and move forward. And again, much like with Emily Baxter, she's not afraid to stand up for herself when people are taking advantage. And people do take advantage of her, as we all are taken advantage of in life. But that doesn't make her weak, because she fights against that. She stands up for herself, and she develops herself into a great human being. And that is all that really matters, isn't it? So moving on to the next one. Clarice Starling from the Hannibal series, and particularly The Silence of the Lambs. Clarice Starling is a FBI recruit who is given the mission of getting a questionnaire off of Hannibal Lecter. That's literally all she's told to do. But seeing the opportunity to make a name for herself, Clarice decides to run with the baton and get to the bottom of the situation that is plaguing the novel, which is the noted serial killer, what's his name? Buffalo Bill. Is it Buffalo Bill in this one? I think it's Buffalo Bill in this one. They're all the Hannibal villains. Right, so yeah, Clarice obviously is incredibly intelligent. She's very thorough in her police work, very willing to get stuck in. There's a lot of talk in this book. Obviously, this book focuses quite a lot on how she is a female character working in very much a man's world, and this is set a lot before even like something like Ragdoll is set in contemporary times. We've come a long way. Silence of the Lambs is set in like the 70s or the 80s. I don't know. It's set in a time period that is before now. So being a woman in that time was even more of a achievement, I guess, in this sort of job. And she is sort of very exemplary in the job. She does as good, or if not better, than most of her male colleagues. She cracks the case, spoilers, but she's always been, even when Hannibal is trying to get at her and pick at her weaknesses, she doesn't crumble, she doesn't break. She's a very tough character. Good job. Next on the list is Catcher from Swords and Scoundrels and the Duelist trilogy by Julia Knight. Actually, the first female author that's appearing on this list, which is surprising to me as well as I'm sure to all of you. So yeah, Catcher is, as you can see, this lady here, sword in hand. She is a stabby backflip assassin. Actually, she is. That is literally her job, stabby backflip assassin. But the strength that Catcher brings to the table is not just in her ability to do stabby stab chop chops. It's also in her ability to just sack off everything in her life to stand up for her principles and for her relatives. The plot of the Swords and Scoundrels is that this fellow, Vocho, who is Catcher's brother, her younger brother, they're both duelists in this thing called the Duelists Guild, which is essentially a mercenary band of expert swordsmen. Vocho is kicked out of the Duelists Guild because he is accused of a very heinous crime that he swears to God, swears to everything holy that he did not do and doesn't remember doing, even though he was caught red-handed. Catcher, without really thinking about it too much, just says, you know what? I believe you. You're my younger brother. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to leave too. And both of them go on the run to make a life for themselves as highwaymen at the beginning of the book. Catcher is very well developed throughout the entire trilogy. Her relationship with her love interest slash antagonist slash nemesis is sort of the driving through line of all three books. And her struggle with identity and feeling like she has to be perfect after living through essentially an abusive sort of upbringing by her parents and the people that run the guild. Like it's always like it's very much. I think I should do a whole video on the sort of relationships in this book in particular. But Katja in particular is very much brought up in this belief that she is the golden child, and she struggles to live up to that title in everything she does, and that's not just sword fighting, but everything else in her life, and her willingness to sort of throw all that to the wind in defense of her brother is an incredibly strong character trait. And yeah, she just sort of is really awesome. I don't really want to say what I was going to say because it spoils. Spoilers are bad! So that's it. Catcher from Swords and Scoundrels by Julia Knight. Next, Ellie, who I forget the second name of on the back here, which is not what I normally use to cheat. It just says Ellie. So Ellie from Tomorrow When the War Began. This is an Australian young adult series, which is about when I think it's Japan. Is it Japan? It's sort of like vaguely identified as Japan, like that sort of Asian region. Other countries may be involved, possibly North Korea. They invade Australia essentially because they just like, we're overcrowded. Australia's huge. We're going to have that. So they invade, and Ellie and her friends are on a camping trip when that happens. So they become guerrilla fighters, not because they fall in with a guerrilla movement, not because, they're told to or they're drummed into this thing, not because they're chosen by destiny, but because some fucking assholes just invaded their home and they're going to take it back. So they do what they can to survive. And Ellie in particular is very well developed, at least through the ones that I've read. I haven't finished the whole series. I think I've gone through the first 4. But she very much becomes a leader to the group. She becomes very strong. Not super proficient with firearms, although she does have a gun. She's not a warrior woman. She's just fighting for her home. And what's stronger than that? What's stronger than that? Lighting's going to go a bit weird, guys, because I'm sort of sitting inside. Excuse it if that happens. I'm always sitting inside, but I've got these weird lights on because it's fucking raining and dark outside. It's London. Right, next on the list is Rachel from Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. This is a girl who's dying of cancer, but isn't fucking always horrendously mopey about it. That's a horrible thing to say, but no, it sort of is true. This is a book about obviously a girl. Dying girl is the third rung on the ladder there, but she is obviously she faces that problem with strength. She's, I think they're like, what are they, 15, 16, 17, 18? How many numbers can I count? So she's obviously a teenage girl diagnosed with cancer, but the ability that she has to approach it with humor and practical, it's pragmatism. It's not one of those, this isn't one of those YA stories where it's like, oh, I'm gonna become a philosopher poet now that I've been diagnosed with an illness. It's very real, it's very down to earth, and it's very humorous, and that is like the ability to go through something as serious as that and still keep a personality and a sense of humor is commendable and very incredibly strong. Obviously, she's not like a fucking robot that doesn't care. There's moments of vulnerability and weakness in there, but ultimately, she's just a great human being, and it makes the whole thing more tragic. So yeah, that's good. Rachel from Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. I think people sort of hated this book on BookTube, but I liked it, so whatever. Right, next one. This is one that everyone on BookTube loves, and that is Star from The Hate You Give. I don't know why she needed a weird name, but whatever, it's YA, isn't it? That's just what they do for the most part. So yeah, Star from The Hate U Give. Star is a young African-American woman who is being brought up in a basically like a South Central LA type area, where obviously there's a lot of poverty there, a lot of violence there, and a lot of oppression of the black community there. But Star unfortunately witnesses the illegal killing of her friend Khalil, and then has to go on this sort of journey of self-discovery about her own strength as a person and the strength of her community, and the sort of strength to stand up against this sort of thing like violence and oppression, using her own voice and the unfortunate reality of having a good old riot. So yeah, Star is obviously incredibly strong throughout the whole book. Again, much like with all of these characters, there are moments of weakness there and vulnerability. She's not a radical, I'm going to smash the state sort of person. She's not a sword fighter. She doesn't know kung fu. But she's a girl who is incredibly strong for being able to stand up and use her voice in a way that hopefully can change things for the better for her and the people she cares about. And that's what I define as strength. So good on you, Star. That's by Angie Thomas, by the way. That's 2 female authors on the list. Give the thumbs up. Right, next one is a children's book for children, for little babies, and that is Artemis Fowl by Ian Colfer. I believe that is, in fact, how you pronounce it. Artemis Fowl is about a boy genius who kidnaps a fairy. But it's not just any fairy, it's Commander Holly Short from the LEP Recon. Yes, Leprechaun. Do you get it? So Holly Short is a fairy, and she is a commando. She is one of the backflip kicking assassins, but she's captured by Artemis Fowl, boy genius, master criminal, and held captive, at least for a little while. But she doesn't just passively sit there. You know, she's always trying to find a way to get herself out of the situation. You know, she's very highly competent in her job. She's not given the respect she deserves, but she keeps fighting and doing it anyway because that's what she loves, God damn it. And as the series goes on, Holly Short becomes good friends with Artemis Fowl. Spoilers there. She becomes good friends with Artemis Fowl and goes on many of his adventures. Too many for me to remember, of course, because I read this as a small child and haven't actually reread this since picking it up, even though I said I was going to do so last year. But yeah, this is a character that was a great one from my childhood, and I figured I'd share it now. Holly Short, thumbs up. And the last one on my list, number 10. This video is super long because top 10s take twice as long as top 5s, and that is Quincy Carpenter from The Final Girls by Riley Sager. I don't know if Riley Sager is a female author or not, because it's a pen name. I don't know. But Quincy Carpenter was the survivor of a massacre that left all of her friends dead. She developed some sort of memory suppression where she doesn't remember the events of that day. But you know what she didn't do? She didn't become a victim. She didn't wallow in self-pity and self-loathing. Of course, there were psychological scars there. She has her moments of weakness. She has her foibles and her things that are not so good about her. But you know what? She picked up her life. She started her own business. She didn't, you know, become a complete and utter lunatic. And that is sort of the crux of this novel, is actually her struggle to hold on to that reality that she's created for herself when it's tested by the appearance of another girl who survived at a similar event. But Quincy, I thought, was very strong throughout the whole thing. You know, she's not one of those kung fu backflip assassins, but, you know, she fights for her life. She struggled through these events and she succeeded. She came out the other side a better person for it all. And that is what a strong female character is to me. So that's it for my list of the top 10 strong female characters that I enjoy in books. So if you have any opinions on anything I said, if you want to disagree or agree in the comments below, if any of those characters sounded interesting and you'd want to discuss them more, hit me up in the comments below. Leave a like on this video for International Women's Day, which I missed by a whole day, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already for more top 10, top 5 and all sorts of lists and fun videos from me, and of course book reviews and discussions as well. And that's it for now, so I will see you next time, and go and tell a woman you know that they're great. Or if you are a woman, tell yourself you're great, because that's always nice, even if you're not a woman. So yeah, bye!